How can theater compete for your entertainment dollar against all of this? All of this that you can enjoy for relatively cheap, if not for free, in the comfort of your living room, in your PJs eating chocolate, or in some cases without your PJs. But this is the question that keeps us theater professionals up late at night worrying. Because theater, newsflash, is not going to get any cheaper. There's a limited number of seats. It takes a lot of man hours and effort to bring technicians and actors to the stage. So my suggestion is that theater has to revert to the basics and not try to recapitulate what film and television do much better than TV, and do what is purely theatrical. And I'm going to use the next few minutes to talk about a few productions that I've read or seen. One of the great luxuries of my job is I get to travel around the country and the world sometimes and see all kinds of theater. It's a great pleasure. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. So I'm going to show you is I picked 5 plays that to me represent what I think of as purely theatrical. And you'll see why John has said that this is a wonderful lead-in, because my first example is War Horse, which is a really astonishing experience. What's amazing about War Horse, imagine, if you will, that there was a producer behind this that had untold millions, and they decided to put on animatronic horses that were almost real but a hair's breadth off. You'd have a completely different experience. You'd always, as an audience member, be reminded that you were seeing almost the real thing, but it differed from the real thing in a small amount. What's amazing about this is that the artists have decided to give you the scaffolding of reality. You literally have the scaffolding. You have the wood, you have the cloth. There's no effort to hide the puppeteers. So they're meeting the audience halfway. What does the audience do? Your job is to fill in imaginatively. Your imagination pours into this world and creates a reality. You decide that these horses are alive, even though the artists make it clear that this is artificial. And your action is what brings these horses to life. Your action as an imaginative audience member, you with the hundreds around you, is what brings these amazing battle scenes in which soldiers and horses get slaughtered in this play. It's that you're active in bringing that to life. This is a play by a small Bolivian theater company. It's a docudrama play called En un sol amarillo, which means in a yellow sun. And it's the story of a 1998 earthquake that devastated several small Bolivian towns. The first act is about the earthquake itself and several stories about people being trapped. And the second act is about the ineptitude and graft, governmental graft, that hindered recovery and rebuilding efforts. So, how do you create a cataclysmic earthquake on stage? You could spend billions of dollars and make it as literal as possible, or you could do what this theater company did with 4 actors. It's a system of 4 pulleys, as you see, and on each pulley they attach tables, chairs, frames, and they have a little bit of sand. And let me tell you, in the space of 5 minutes, you feel like you've been in one of the world's worst earthquakes. And you also, through very, very simple gestures, you get to tell stories of people who've been buried alive for days. Again, they're giving you the scaffolding, and your imagination fills in and enters this world very actively. This is a play that's very dear to my heart because my theater premiered this. Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo. The man who is standing behind the soldier in the cage is a tiger. He's the titular tiger, in fact. Why do we know this? Because about 3 minutes into the play, he tells us. And we buy it. The playwright makes it very clear in the introductory notes to his play and to the director that there should be nothing remotely tiger-like about the way this character is played. Don't put him in a tiger costume with cute ears. He shouldn't be growling. No, he is a character who happens to be a tiger. By the end of this scene that you see in the slide, he is shot and killed, and he reappears as a ghost through the rest of the play. In this slide, the man you see standing behind the sitting man is the ghost of Saddam Hussein's son, Uday Hussein, and he's holding the severed head of his brother, Qusay Hussein, and they are haunting this man who is sitting, who used to be their gardener, and is now an interpreter for the American forces. Again, there's no change, there's no clanking chains, there's nothing remotely ghost-like about this man. But because the playwright is so precise and consistent with the way he creates this world, he gives you the scaffolding of this incredible cosmology, and you enter it willingly. You fill in your understanding of this world. Now, I've been talking about very grand plays, about plays that, a lot of war plays, plays with big scope. Theatricality can also happen in very intimate plays. This play is called The Thugs by Adam Bach, and believe it or not, this is one of the scariest plays I've seen in recent memory. And the reason why it's hard to believe, because everything about this, and that's why I love this slide, everything about this production is completely banal. But, right, there's nothing remotely beautiful about this. And as I think production designers will tell you, making this kind of work is as difficult as bringing an 18th century drawing room to life. But what happens, this play is about a number of temps who work in a completely faceless corporate office who start to suspect that they're being picked off. Sometimes they go down the elevator in the back and they don't reappear. And they're starting to get more and more paranoid. So why is this scary? I think because the playwright is so, and the director in this case, who's so talented, are so skillful with their design team at bringing the quotidian, the banal to life, worrying about paper clips, filing useless reports, that the world outside, your imagination, start fretting more and more about the danger outside the elevator doors. Again, it's because of the specificity of what's happening on stage that you start panicking about what's just beyond the elevator doors. The next play I'm going to talk about has yet to be produced, and I got the playwright's consent to show you a few pages from her script, because it'll give you a sense of how imaginatively she's thinking about the play. It's a play called Froggy by Jennifer Haley, who's a Los Angeles-based playwright, and it's a graphic novel play. Now, this may sound like I'm contradicting myself because I made a point of saying that theater should not recapitulate what other media do better. What Jennifer's doing actually is she's taking the graphic novel and video games as a jumping off point to create a new kind of theatrical experience. So she's talking about having mass, she's going to have live music, there's going to be a video game element to the play, there's a voiceover, and see, I don't know if it's so blurry, at the very bottom she says, effects and transitions may also be obvious. In other words, in terms of theater making, there is nothing there to hide, which is what I love about the best theater makers. It's weird, it's a paradoxical thing. The more you make clear the artifice of a play and a production, the more latitude an audience has to throw in their own imagination. This is an example of page 28, where the top right box is actually happening in an onstage video game. The left is the actual character interacting in real time. The voiceover's in the gray box. And of course, there's a lot of sound effects and visual effects. Now, this is the kind of play that comes across, I read, as you can imagine, thousands of plays. This kind of play comes across my desk and I get really excited. Why? Because I have no idea how we can do it. And that's exciting. When I get a play that I know exactly, I can picture exactly how it's going to work, my heart rate doesn't skip a beat. This is the kind of play that makes me think, what in the world was that? I wish I could say the real word, but I can't. What in the shucks was that? And this is what I love about theater, because theater is a communal experience. In fact, the success of TED and TEDx is based in large part to the fact that you all, a couple of weeks from now, can see this at your computer without leaving your house. But you all paid some money to be here, because it's more fun to think and talk about ideas in communion. And I think theater at its best is about ideas. And my favorite kind of theater, and the theater that you should expect, is the kind of theater that as soon as the lights come up, make you turn to your neighbor and go, what the was that? So I want to end by saying that we theaters and my colleagues spend a lot of time trying to second guess what you want to see. So I'm going to take this chance to cut you off at the pass and maybe give you a homework list of what you should expect in theater, what you should value in theater so that you really get the bang for your bucks. Sir, you have my list. I wanted to make sure I hit my list. Boredom is not okay. It is not worth $50 to sit for 2 to 3 hours in the theater and be bored. If you're bored, you should stop going to the theater. Insist on the theatrical, whether a play is huge in scope or intimate. Insist on the theatrical. A play or a piece of theater that doesn't engage your imagination, you might as well watch it on TV or in film. Like all good art, theater should raise more questions than it can answer. If you leave a play, or any work of art actually, being able to tell your neighbor precisely what it was about, it wasn't that interesting to start with. And this is a plea I would get down on my knees, except I would get red flush on my knees. Mm-hmm. Don't bring young people, the next generation of theater artists, to theater that is explicitly safe. The fact is, young people, thanks to TV, and TV right now has some of the best writers working on staff it has ever had, TV is talking about a whole plethora of stuff that kids have access to. So if they start thinking that theater is a place where there's no swear words and where they're not going to talk about sex or violence or things that might really affect them, there's no reason they're ever going to want to spend money to go see it. And lastly, I think of theater as a communal waking dream. This is what I was talking about, the imagination. As you throw your imagination into War Horse or Bengal Tiger, you're really experiencing a dream that you're active in making. And you're doing it with a whole bunch of other people dreaming in communal way. So please expect all that from theater, and we hope to bring you more of that as much as possible. Thank you.